Hello and welcome to Miniature Adventures. I'm Big Lee, and today I want to discuss strange attraction. What made you pick the periods you play? So today's video wants to ask a simple question. What is it that attracted you to a particular period? You know, were you inspired by new rules or by miniatures or by the books that you've read or films that you've seen? Or does picking something that no one else has done before inspire you to collect and paint a particular army or a particular period? Now, I've been chatting to some of my mates in the rejects about this, and our motivations were surprising in some respects, more diverse than I would have anticipated, and they threw up a few ideas that I hadn't even thought of. So much so, in fact, that I wanted to discuss it here and ask, why do we pick the periods we play? So I'm going to start with the three most obvious reasons, the ones that I expected to hear, and then look at some real world examples by talking through some of the examples given by my friends in the rejects, and finally I'm going to ask the same question to myself. Now, one of the things I expected people to say was that it was like new rule sets that got them into a particular period or game. When a new rule set comes out, there's often a lot of buzz and there's a spike in interest, and the publishers will obviously promote those rule sets. There'll be glossy photos in magazines, and it'll be in all of the online forums and all of that sort of stuff. And in full colour adverts, the works in the magazines, and articles about upcoming rules will be written, and after action reports will come out when new rules have finally been published. And there may even be the occasional themed issue in a magazine, for instance. And all of these things I expect will attract certain people to some periods. And some of you out there would probably say, yep, that's me. But it wasn't one of the reasons given by any of the rejects. Now, similarly, new miniature ranges coming out are always produced with a fanfare. There's lots of advertising that goes with it. New figures are often shown off in the magazines. Obviously, they're all over the forums and the hobby news channels and stuff like that. But surprising to me, anyway, none of the postage rejects admitted to having succumbed to this. Maybe my perception is skewed by the forums and the hobby news sites I read, but I can't be the only wargamer to have come home from a show with an army I never knew I needed. Another one of the things that I expected to hear from people was that books or films had inspired them. A well-illustrated history book or a blockbuster film can get the juices flowing, certainly, I know that. But in the case of a book, for instance, on a particular period, it does beg the question, what comes first, the interest or the book? I suppose if you've got bought a book out of the blue and you dutifully read it and go, wow, that was brilliant, but I expect most of us will have had a reason for wanting to buy a particular book ourselves, and maybe that has inspired you, but certainly none of the rejects thought that that was a reason why they chose the periods they did. So what were the reasons they gave? Well, they were varied, as I've already alluded to. One of the ones that I suppose I should have anticipated was that several of the rejects were inspired by their own family history, grandfathers that served in the Royal Navy or in World War I or World War II. That personal connection can be a very strong motivator to want to, develop an interest in the period, and that develops into wanting to play the period. Handed down artifacts, documents, photos can create a very strong link to a period. So I shouldn't have been entirely surprised that family history would play a role in motivating some of the rejects to play the periods that they've chosen. But then one I didn't think of was personal history. So one of the rejects said that he was inspired by the periods that he studied at university and had taught as a teacher. And for him, what attracted him to the particular periods that he's had an interest in for like 30 plus years was the depth of knowledge that can come with a lifelong interest in a particular period. Understanding the deep political and social background to a conflict adds a completely new level of understanding that a more casual amateur, if you like, interest in a period of history would create. And then another one of the rejects said he was entirely motivated by picking something that no one else in the group had done. As a group, we often bring our collections to the shed and run games. so why collect a period that somebody else has already got? You know, it never occurred to me that that might be a reason for one of our group picking a completely off the wall, if you like, period, something interesting and quite unique. And the reason is simply that no one else has done it in our group. So what about me? What is my motivations? Well, as usual, I can't have just one, can I? There are several reasons that I would pick the periods that I have. I mean, firstly, if I'm really honest, I'm drawn to pivotal moments in history where the future and the present hang in the balance. I mean, I love sci-fi novels and sci-fi films and stuff like that, so it shouldn't be a big surprise that the what-if possibilities of alternate history should fascinate me. But I'm not going to play them as what-ifs or as alternative history. I'm going to play the history because the turning point could have changed everything that followed. But I'm also fascinated in the great figures of history. For good or ill, they've shaped our present. And learning where my romanticism and reality part ways is hugely fascinating to me. So there you have it, some of the reasons why me and my friends have picked the periods we have. But as always, I'll end by asking, what is it that motivates you? Why have you picked the periods that you have? Please join the conversation in the comments below or over on my blog, Big Lee's Miniature Adventures. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe and share. So until next week, look after yourself, get in as many games as you can, and of course, keep rolling high.